has a too clean Jesus on a too clean cross. The authentic biblical account differs from what we hear, see, and imagine, and if so, how can we truly appreciate the sacrifice and the extent that Jesus went for us? How can we appreciate those prophetic words of Isaiah that says, but he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquity. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. How can we appreciate those prophetic words when we know the severity of our transgressions and our iniquities, yet we are being given a clean Jesus and a clean cross? If one pulled a copy of the Roman centurion autopsy report of Jesus' body from the Federal Bureau of Palestine, we will see that after the arrest in the middle of the night, Jesus is brought before the Sanhedrin and Caiaphas, the high priest. It is here when the first physical trauma is inflicted. A soldier strikes Jesus across the face for remaining silent when questioned by Caiaphas. The palace guards then blind him with a cloth and taunt him to identify them as they pass by. They also spit on him, strike him in the face, and pull out his beard. Furthermore, while we do not know exactly how many guards participated, we know from history that the palace guard consisted of 900 to 1,200 soldiers. Even if 10% participated, Jesus endured a lot of shame, disgrace, and pain at the hands of the soldiers. Can you see the wounded Jesus? It didn't stop there. Preparation for the scourging was carried out. Jesus is stripped of his clothes and his hands are tied to a post above his head, so that the flesh of his shoulders and back are stretched to the limit. The Jews had an ancient law prohibiting more than 40 lashes, which is why Paul several times received 39 lashes. But the Romans made no attempt to follow Jewish laws in this matter, and Jesus probably received many more. When the back of Jesus is bared and stretched tight, a Roman legionary steps forward with a flagellum, which is also called a cat of nine tails, right in his hand. It is a short whip, consists of nine heavy leather thongs, each with small lead balls embedded with bits of glass, stone, or bone attached near the end. The heavy whip is brought down with full force again and again on the shoulders, the back, and the legs of Jesus. At first, the heavy thongs cut through the skin only. Then as the blows continue, they cut deeper into the subcutaneous tissue, producing first an oozing of blood from the capillaries and veins of the skin, and finally the arteries, the bleeding from vessels in the underlying muscles. The small balls of lead, bits of glass and stone produce large, deep bruises, which are broken open by continuing blows. Eventually, the skin of the back of Jesus hangs in long ribbons. The entire area is unrecognizable. It's just a mass of torn, bleeding tissue. Jesus. Can you see this wounded Jesus? The blows do not hit just the back either. When the long strings of the flagellum strikes, they wrap around the victim's body and dig into the deep front and sides of the body. Then the flagellum is quickly pulled back and finally ripped and tearing the flesh of the body. When it's determined by the centurion in charge that the prisoner is near death, the beating is finally stopped. The half-fainting Jesus is then untied and allowed to slump to the stone pavement, soaked in his own blood. blood. Can you see the wounded Jesus?
Come on, man. Come on.
The Roman soldiers see an opportunity to make a joke out of him. So they throw a robe across his shoulders and place a stick in his hand for a scepter. To make the travesty complete, a small bundle of flexible branches are covered with long thorns, are woven into the shape of a crown, pressed in his scalp. Since head wounds always bleed a lot, the blood runs down his face and into his eyes. Can you see this wounded Jesus? After mocking him and striking him across the face some more, the soldiers take the scepter from his hand and strike him on the head, which drives the thorns deeper into the scalp. After they tire of their sadistic sport, the robe is torn from his back. It had already adhered to the clots of blood and ribbons of flesh on his back and had begun to dry in the hot mid-eastern sun. The tearing of the robe from his back, just like the careless removal of a surgical bandage from a wound, causes excruciating pain. As wounds reopen and more flesh is torn from his back. Here is the wounded Jesus, and whom Isaiah spoke of. They shall see the servant of God beaten and bloody, an object of horror, so disfigured many were astonished. The prophet says his face and his whole appearance were marred more than any man's. One would scarcely know it was a person. Can you see this wounded Jesus? You don't mind if I slow walk? The soldier that took the heavy patibulum and tied it roughly, it's the wooden beams, and they tied it roughly to Jesus' shoulders. The procession leads down the Via Dolorosa. In spite of his efforts to stand and walk erect, the weight of the heavy beam, together with the shocks produced by blood loss, is too much for Jesus. He is frequently stumbling and falling. When he does, the rough wood of the beam gouges into the lacerated skin and muscles of his shoulders and sends splinters deep into his skin. At one point he tries to rise, but human muscles have pushed beyond their limitations. The centurion, anxious to get to the crucifixion, selected a North African onlooker, Simon of Cyrene, to carry the cross beam. Jesus follows behind, still bleeding, still sweating cold blood, clammy sweat of shock. After 650 yards, the journey to Golgotha is complete. The crucifixion begins. Can you see this wounded Jesus? Prior to the nailing Jesus to the cross, he's offered wine mixed with myrrh. This was a mild anesthesia and was intended to help numb the pain. But Jesus refuses this drink. But how many of us got our own little vices to numb the pain we're going? Simon is ordered to place the wooden beam on the ground, and Jesus is roughly thrown backward upon his on top of the wood. The legendary feels for the depression in the front of the wrist, places a spike in the depression, and quickly drives a heavy square wrought iron nail through the wrist and deep into the wood. He moves to the other side, repeats the action, making sure he does not pull the arm too tightly. Then the cross is hoisted and set in place. The left foot is now pressed back against the right foot, and with both feet extended, toes down, a nail is driven through the arch of each, leaving the knees moderately flexed. Death by crucifixion now begins. Jesus endures hours of limitless, excruciating pain. from respiratory failure, firing, shooting in his neurological system, throughout the whole body into his brain and muscular system is totally damaged, yet wounded and bruised more than any criminal in history. He musters up enough strength and breath to pray to the Father on behalf of those who tortured him and for the rest of the world. He affirms the faith of a dying thief. He heals a family and fulfills his earthly mission, then commends his spirit back to the Father who sent him wrapped in love. But can you see this unwrapped and wounded Jesus? The legendary comes and drives.